Hey all, Ian McDonald here with episode 3 of the Sports Card Side Hustle. This is our third week running. Thursday night as we have game 2 of the NBA Finals kicking off between Phoenix and Milwaukee soon. We got a few things to discuss with you. The number one topic that I wanted to focus on this week is I showed you I had 3 cards held up there. Got some, we have PSA, Beckett, and SGC, and HGA. So we're going to discuss 4 grading companies, give some great grading tips and strategies. We're going to focus on how to be efficient with those grading companies, strategies, the price points, and how to utilize them. Okay, so I'm going to run through all 4 of those. There are some good charts out there with recommendations on how some people put those in order. The value of, say, a PSA 10 compared to a Beckett, a BGS 10, an SGC 10, the 9.5s and a half grades, and how they probably rank in order. I'm going to take a couple of those and hang those, screen capture those in the comments of this broadcast when we post that. So please keep that in mind. So I'm going to go over from some very well-established grading companies to one of the newcomers from PSA to HGA. So if I start with PSA, let me show you a few of their cards that I have right now and explain why I use PSA. So these are some 10s and 9s. We have an Aaron Judge card that I mentioned recently that's a 1 of 1. It's a 10 gem mint, and the auto is also a 10. Then I have a pretty cool Joe Burrow and Jefferson dual auto. That was a mint 9, and the autos are a 10. And then I do have a purple scope Panini Prism rookie parallel. It's a 1 of 99 that came back a 9 from PSA as well. So talking about PSA, here's the golden rules and what's important to me from PSA. PSA is the industry standard, like it or not. I've had my gripes, complaints, struggles at times with PSA just because of the cost and how much you have to pay to get your cards graded with them. But they're definitely the preferred for vintage. You're going to get the highest dollar value for your vintage cards going to PSA. But really across the board for all cards, they're going to beat out. And then you're going to have a couple others that come close in comparison when it comes to modern or vintage. And I'll hit those. But a PSA 10 is the gold standard. You're usually that's going to get you the highest resale value, with the exception of the specific labels on the BGS 10 and maybe the SGC 10, just because those are so hard to get. So if you think that your card is a PSA 10 and you're willing to pay the price point, basically it's all about margin and those ratios. What did you pay for the raw compared to what your card will likely grade at, and is it worth paying? Right now you've got to pay at least $200 to get graded at PSA, as they've increased their express price. They opened up that express level for the first time since I think it was around March 1st. They had it shut down for 3 to 4 months. They had express, regular, value, all those lower levels bulk shut down so that they could try to catch up with that backlog. The millions, some people are saying up to 12 million cards in backlog. Nat Turner, the new majority owner of Collectors Universe, has been out there discussing this, that they want to keep quality under control, they want to work down the backlog, and therefore the only way to keep the demand in check to where they can keep up and is to raise the prices. So when you're assessing what to grade and where to grade it, PSA, if your card, probably it's got to be over $1,000 value, $800 to $1,000, and that depends on what you paid for it raw before it's worth it right now. If you're willing to wait a little bit, I'm thinking it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks for Express right now because they just reopened that and they're committed to working down the backlog. So $200 a card. So if you don't have at least a profit margin, or you see the value going up for a few $100s, like you paid $300 to $500, and you think the card is worth at least twice that when graded with PSA, then PSA isn't for you right now unless you can wait, and you can wait for more grading levels to get opened up. If you do think you paid $300 to $500 and the card's worth at least double what you paid, if you paid more than that, then you can afford that express level. It's worth it if you need the card right away because you think it's hitting a peak and you're trying to do a quick trade, a quick sell, a flip, make revenue available or capital available for other sports card purchases, then go ahead and use that $300 and up value note. Keep in mind also that in some ways you don't have a choice for those price points of 300, 600, 1,000, the walkthroughs. Those are based on assessed value, and PSA will come back to you if you have underestimated the value of your card and say you submit and it's a $25,000 card or more based on their grading and authentication. They're going to come back to you and tell you that you need to increase the fee that you put in the form. So keep that in mind. So PSA is industry standard. It is by far the most expensive, starting at $200 for Express, and that Express can still take a long time. So in the meantime, the last few months, I was using Beckett more and more. I'll show you some Beckett examples. I will use Beckett for anything modern. I trust Beckett for the most part. I do appreciate their slabs and the value they hold based on the cost. So I have similar cards that you'll see here. Mostly because I don't have a lot of vintage right now that I'm holding or that I have back. All my vintage is in grading. So if it's vintage, I send a PSA as a first choice. Modern, I do consider Beckett almost on an equal par. And you'll see that I have some good quality cards, short prints that are all nines here. Derrick Henry out of $2.99, an orange prism. McCaffrey, silver prism, or I'm sorry, that's a Blue Wave rookie. Got a 9.5 with Beckett I've been holding. And an Ohtani signed auto, 1 out of 2 that's a 9. So my strategy there with Beckett, I was using the second and third levels. Those, I think it was $50 and $150. 50 was taking extremely long, 6 to 9 months now. So then any cards above a certain value or where that ratio from raw to an 8 to 9 to 9.5 was really going to be worth it. Then I was sending those in for the $150 level, and they were staying pretty quick. They were always getting those done in 2 to 3 weeks for me, 10 to 15 business days, and I was getting quite a bit in with Beckett. I still do have 50 or 60 cards in at the $50 level. Those have been in 6 or 7 months. So Beckett, I would say the price point, the ratio is at equal grades. You will find a significant difference. I'll start to bring more data to these, and we'll start to pull that share screen. You'll find some difference, and I have found that margin to grow between Beckett and PSA over the last 6 to 9 months. But I will say this, that what Beckett gives you is that possibility of the half grade and their 10s. If you get a 10 is harder to get, so a 10 is closer in value or sometimes will beat a PSA 10. And then a 9.5, you'll see on par with the PSA 9s are a little bit higher, so you have that possibility of a half grade where people have in their head that's a 9.5. That's on the gem mint scale, where PSA doesn't give you that half grade in between. So if it's not a for sure 10, you have that possibility of a 9.5 to give you possibly that slight edge, a little bit of value. So Beckett I go to for modern. People like it for modern. People like the subgrades for modern, and people like to know why they got the overall grade they did. It grades the corners, the centering, the edges, and the surface, and then that overall grade. And you can figure out really why you got that grade and was it appropriate, prudent, and worthy of that grade. PSA doesn't give you those subgrades, keep in mind. I've come back, I've got a 6 or a 4, something really weird or random that I couldn't figure out, and I've had to scan every inch of that, every millimeter of that card, trying to figure out why, what it was. Most of the time I have been able to find it with a loop, or I found something I missed, a dent or a little chunk out of an edge or something. But it is nice that with the other grading companies such as Beckett and HGA, you get those subgrades, so you understand exactly what it was, why you got the grade that you got. So with those two, I'll also say never use Beckett for vintage. I have done it. People don't feel the same about BVG, their vintage grading. They don't like the way that that Beckett grades vintage as a whole. The vintage community and those that are far more into vintage, they don't have that level of respect for Beckett and how they grade vintage. I will say that I had one fluke, I think, where early on when I was kind of new to the market, I did get Wilt Chamberlain rookie graded with Beckett because I was Beckett didn't charge by the value. They don't charge by the value of the card. That's one big difference. You're just going by speed. So you can have a $10,000 modern card go to Beckett and it doesn't matter the value, and that's a big difference in price point and based on the value between how Beckett and PSA works. So I had a Wilt go in, ended up grading a 5, and it actually, I think, on that date broke a record when it auctioned, even beating out all the PSA 5s to date. Could have been a fluke when the market was first starting to surge. So you will get those that they don't care, they do respect Beckett or BVG, but I'll tell you that early on and tracking the data and comparing charts all through my experience in the last 18 months, especially, PSA crushes Beckett when you compare vintage, and when you come to modern, the price comparison is much closer. So Beckett will get in the ballpark, and you can get much fairer prices. They have shut down all grading except for the 250 price level. That might sound crazy, but if you're getting to a ultra high cost, high end modern card, and it's maybe a 1-in-1 or it's a Topps Chrome, LeBron rookie, or pick any modern card that's going to be crazy price point and some of those RPAs. If you send a PSA, they're going to charge you by the value, so you're going to get into like $600, $1,000, $1,200 per card at that value, and you can still get that same card graded very quickly for $250 at Beckett. So the third grading company that I do have an example with me, is, ironically, the card that I have to show you so you can see what the slab looks like is not one that I would choose to get graded with SGC, but I bought it this way. So it's a Devin Booker. It's a graded a 9, and it's his Orange Wave rookie. I wouldn't choose SGC for modern. I would choose them for vintage, the same way that I would consider Beckett near on par with PSA. That is how I view SGC and all the research, price comparison, and charting I've done. There's a lot of vintage collectors that they'll actually say, I like the simpleness in the black slabs and the way that SGC grades vintage, and they would tell you they'll choose vintage over with SGC over PSA. I can just tell you from firsthand conversations with multiple vintage collectors. Now the market still has that kind of in the back of their mind subconsciously that PSA typically holds greater resale value. So I still see the edge going to PSA anytime I chart it, anytime I compare. But I notice huge. There's modern cards where PSA 9s and 10s compared to SGC 9s and 10s. I've found the difference being multiples of 2 to 4 to 5 times. And there's then vintage where the delta is negligible between the PSA grade of the same grade and the SGC, where it's just SGC is almost on par right below that. One great example when the market exploded was a 1948 Leaf Jackie Robinson rookie. I think it was an SGC 6, went for in the $50,000 to $60,000 range early on when the market was spiking, and it broke all records for that grade, including PSA. There was a few from those 1930s and 40s and 50s, those iconic cards that were selling, and they were breaking records, and SGC was selling higher than PSA at the time. It might have just been that grade sold first in an SGC version as those big buys started to happen, but it definitely showed you that SGC had the respect of the vintage market, and just kind of gave you that angle and that vantage point to see that SGC does have a solid reputation in the vintage world. So those are the orders I would go in right now. Is PSA always first, if the margin is there, if the value is there, and you can get the card into PSA and the timelines match up for you. You can use Express for 200, Super Express for 300. Beckett, I was using the $50 if I could afford to wait on that group of cards for modern. 150 price point if I needed it fairly quick within 3 weeks, because you couldn't get anything back that quickly with PSA for nearly that affordable. Now you got to go 250 for Beckett, so I'm not really using them right now until they open up more. And then SGC, the big thing with them is if you want to send your vintage there, $30 a card they start at, and even the lowest price point is 4 to 6 weeks. And when you look at the business days, they do increase their price based on value, but the prices still stay much more reasonable than PSA and affordable. So the fourth one I'm leaving until last because it's a newcomer to the group, and I want feedback on this. Hit me with your comments. Hit us with your data points, your examples. What kind of grades are you getting? How do you like the slabs? How do you see the price comparison and the price points? So HGA is the fourth one I'm covering. I was really resistant to embrace them or use them just because I know that it doesn't matter so much what I think of the cards and the card slabs and the grades in the market, but I've seen before when it seems like maybe a new grading company is breaking in or there's some new options. But if the market, hobby, and industry as a whole doesn't embrace that, then it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get the price point and the value that I want. So unless that's just for personal collection, I've really avoided. Even SGC at first. I was PSA, Beckett, and then SGC I was willing to try as an outlier for vintage. HGA, with all the shutdowns and the lack of access and availability, return time for the other grading companies, I have started to try HGA, and I'll tell you that I have, I think, 5 orders in for them. At first, they were allowing 5 cards per submission, and then 9. So I have around 40 some cards in that are modern, with values probably in the hundreds, 3 to 6, 700 range. If they were higher and the margins were bigger, then maybe I would have considered paying for Beckett right now or Express to PSA, which I do have. I have a lot of cards into both of those, but I'm trying it out. I'm waiting on about 40 some cards to come back in 5 orders, and I do think that HGA has built some reputation. People like the slabs and people like the options to match, but the reviews are very mixed. Some people are really embracing their innovation, their new ideas for slabs and colors and labels. They like the subgrades for modern, the way that Beckett does it. I've seen some vintage HGA, and I'll just say it doesn't look good to have 4 subgrades with some modern colors and looking label for a classic Jim Brown rookie. I don't think anybody's embracing them much for vintage, but I think for modern, there's not a lot of data out to be sure yet, because most of their grading started in April-ish, and you got to wait for that return. You got to wait for it to hit the market, and we just don't have enough of a data sample yet. So I'm looking for your anecdotes, your feedback, and right now I'm saying give HGA a try. I have a lot of questions out to them. They actually came back to me saying that they'd like to engage or discuss further. So maybe we'll have their answers soon, or we might be able to have them on a future broadcast, do an interview, etc. So main topic tonight was grading tips and the big companies, and so that's my recommendation. Price point on HGA is also another key. They $100 max for 2 business days. They don't go by value; they go by the turnaround time. So 2 business days, $100. They go all the way down to $20 for 60 business days. So what is that? 2.5 months, 75 days. But you can get fairly decent turnarounds of 10 business days and 30 business days for the $30 to $50 range. So keep that in mind as an option to get cards slabbed with a grading company that is keeping some reputation. So on top of that, let me give you just a few other tips, anecdotes that I've found from the grading companies. For PSA, I find them to be the most efficient for the packaging, how you can mail and how they process your orders. and I do recommend sending the lower value orders with the higher end. Keep that in mind when they open back up, or if you're sending express with a 1 day walkthrough. So what happens is, for PSA, every grading order that you complete for a specific level and price is one form and one package or bundle. So you'll get a form for those. You'll have, say, if you're using a $1,200 walkthrough for 5 super high end cards that are all worth over like 10 grand each, then those will all be on one form. That'll be in a barcode with the form that folds inside the package, and you use that rubber band to attach those cards. But then if you use their cheapest grading level with that bundle, and you use that a grading form for that price point, then overall you check the box that you're mailing multiple orders together, and it will give you one barcode to go on the outside of the package that includes all of your orders at different levels. I highly recommend this, that you put them all in the same package, and the reason I say that is just my anecdote, my impression or perception of how this process works. When you get the faster orders where they have to get it through in 1 day, and you have them in the same package as those longer term orders that can be 6 weeks, 6 months, um, they scanned that original barcode and it enters all your orders at once. And I find that they get to them quicker. They're not going to do your 6 week order in a day like the walkthrough that you paid for, but they've just sped up that turnaround time for the original scan and processing of the order. So that's just an anecdote from me. A lesson learned from a Beckett order is quite the opposite. They don't want your packages to go multiple orders in one package. I know this because when I sent 2 or 3 orders in one package, because they were different levels, I had $150 per card order, $50 per card order, all in the same package. The faster order got scanned and entered right away, and I'm still waiting on that second order to get scanned, which kind of gives me some nervousness, where the only acknowledgement I have is that the package arrived, and the order that I paid more for has been scanned and is being graded. And that other order is kind of in no man's land. When I contacted Beckett, they pointed out they don't have a process for the barcode to acknowledge multiple orders in the same package. And so even though the tracking number might show it got there, it doesn't show my second order scanned yet. And there's not much I can do about it until they kind of get to that order. SGC, I don't have any specific anecdotes with them. They were behind for a long time, and now they're caught up, and they increased their capacity, and they're meeting their timelines. So whatever the price says per the turnaround and the value, they seem to meet that very well. And HGA, I believe the same to be true right now, but I haven't got my first order back because I've put all my orders in since mid-June. Second or third week of June I started, and they're all 30 business days is what I was trying out so far. I didn't want to pay more than that price point until I get some results and can assess how that's going. So we'd appreciate any feedback. Keep in mind, research how to get your cards ready. I'm going to tell you that I'm a big advocate for buying raw. For assessing cards, look at the centering most first on modern cards. So assess that centering, and then the obvious things like corners and edges, and just use something without chemicals. Use things like a microfiber that you'd clean your eyeglasses with, and wipe down those chrome cards and any of those surfaces that can get smudges or things off of them. Send them in. Take care of the cards. Read the grading recommendations as far as packaging. And we want your feedback. We want your input from the hobby community. Ask us questions. We're willing to reach out to the grading companies and get official responses for how they handle certain situations, what their turnaround times are like, what their processes are like. And that's what we're working on right now. We are in communications with these grading companies on a daily basis, or not on a daily basis, but as the questions come to us. So we appreciate your participation, feedback, and we want you to help get those answers. Second topic I had tonight that I want to focus on, was did the market bottom out, and what signs are we seeing? So I do watch the card ladder index. I'll reiterate again that I check it on a daily basis, the way some people would check the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the S&P 500, QQQ, or whatever index they might be following for their investments and their 401k, etc. So that card ladder index 18 months ago was under 5,000. It went up towards 30,000. I think in the 28 to $29,000 range at its peak just before March 1st ish, and after that it's come tumbling down probably about actually it was like a 30% average, and it did dip below 19,000, I think. Now if you guys go check that card ladder index and the flat line, it looked like it was hitting a flat line, and then it had another kind of significant dip for a few days, and now it's just been gradually flat to inching up. And the signs that we're seeing that you can correlate to other markets and lessons learned that I think we should take from other markets to this alternative investment market is things like the LeBron James rookies and how they've reacted. They aren't matching his performance. They aren't matching the fact that he got eliminated. The LeBron James rookies, um, I'm seeing maybe a little bounce with Steph Curry rookie and different cards like that, where the LeBron James Topps Chrome, for example, I think it was down 12,000, and it quickly had a bounce to 18 and now 20 to $21,000. So what's causing that? I think it's things like technical indicators where now there's enough money in the market, enough people tracking, watching price points, that when enough buyers feel that something hit a bottom and they start to come in thinking that it's going to swing back the other way, the thing, same way that a stock gets overbought and oversold, we're seeing that with cards. So start to take notice in that, the correlations, things that we would notice in other markets with more money before this alternative investment market, we're now seeing in the sports card industry. I was noticing that Steph Curry's cards, although they had skyrocketed some this year when he was having a great year, and then there was a sell-off when he wasn't making it further and the market was coming down pretty hard. Uh, in the auctions that I have going right now, I'm surprised at how Steph Curry is performing, how his cards are performing, and I'm seeing a pretty good bounce. And of all the cards I have out there, like he, even though it's not basketball season or the finals are ending and all those guys are out, I'm seeing the most watchers for the Steph Curry. So I think there's a lot of people bargain hunting and trying to get the cards as they bounce off the bottom now, starting to pay a little more in the acknowledgement that prices will go back up higher again. So that's something I'm noticing. I just wanted to mention that phenomenon. I think we're coming off the bottom. I had heard the guys at the crossover, the guys who run Card Ladder and run that podcast, who they usually seem pretty on point with their data. It was about 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago that they were saying they didn't think we were quite at the bottom yet, and they were waiting. They were still staying out of the market for a little bit longer until to go in and buy more heavy when we hit the bottom. And I think now we've probably hit that bottom, and I think that we're going to see that a lot of activity now as we enter some big summer card shows. So that's a good segue into where I wanted to wrap up is events coming up in the market. We have the NBA Finals Game 2. I do think that's going to be a big propellant for Booker and now Chris Paul. And I think that Chris Paul might be the big surprise in the price value. I've been saying Booker. My buddy Teddy Reyes, gave me the tip about Booker all the way back to preseason. He was right. But Booker has been getting his respect and some price increase. But I think Chris Paul, he's performing so strongly and has avoided all the injuries that now he's going to be the big surprise here. So I think Phoenix will win, and Chris Paul and Devin Booker are going to be the big winners there. As far as other events, we're hitting the All-Star break. People are assessing those baseball players, but now we're also hitting some great card shows, and they're starting to have signers out at these for the first time before the NFL season. First time with COVID hitting that we're now having people come to the shows. So in my area here in Northern Virginia, we have Jalen Hurts and some other NFL stars here signing this weekend at a card show. So look for that. We're going to broadcast a little bit live from that when we're there this weekend. And then we're going to have the National in Atlanta, the Atlanta show this summer as well. So some big shows. We'll see how those sales and all those trades and business going on impacts the market, and how these tools are now able to track the price data when everything's not just eBay and electronic the way that it was during COVID. So I want to get that on everybody's radar. I wanted to give a shout out to the Best Damn Sports Card group that I created, that's run by Teddy Reyes and Steve Warner. Doing a great job in that, having breaks and a lot of giveaways and prizes in there all the time. I want to mention I've known Teddy since Iraq back in 2008 to 9. So he's a great guy. You can trust what he says. He's running fair deals in there and giving a lot of great games, Chaser Racer, different games that he's created. People are loving. That group's hitting about 800 people, and it's fairly new. So I'm also the owner of Variety Trading Cards. Check me out on eBay and check out my eBay store. And feel free in the comments to hit us with any questions, your views on grading, what you think about those 4 grading companies I mentioned. And in the comments, I will put some different data about how people feel about the order and the value of these grades. So have a good weekend. Enjoy all the sporting events that are coming back. Get out to the sports card shows, and look forward to hearing more about how the market's going, the market and the hobby over the summer. And we'll get some video out from the Chantilly show this weekend. Take care.